Perfect. We're suited for this episode. Let's do it.
Yeah, we're good. We're suited for this podcast. We should be hosts.
Go. We're professionals.
The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, once again. Welcome back. It is the Future of Music podcast. And with me, as always, is the adorable Jonathan Boyd over here. And I think I got it wrong the last time. I think if I point this way, it points
You got it.
directly at you.
That's
yeah,
it.
I think I nailed it now. Where the heck are you, by the way? You were in Iceland last time. You were on this wonderful podcast that we do. Where the heck are you now?
Yeah, I'm in Norway at the moment. It's 9 p.m. and this is actually light from outside. So it's still like 3 p.m., 4 p.m. light outside. So it's kind of nice.
You're gonna be like doomed when you come back and come to our normal time zones here. This is just how long
Maybe.
does that take for you to adjust? I know you've done this before, but like, what does that look like?
I don't know, but I haven't seen nighttime in about 9 days.
It sounds like a great country song, honestly. I think I think that is the one.
I'll
It's
write
like
that
when you grow up and you go to bed on time. You haven't seen.
Well, I ain't
the
seen
nighttime.
nighttime
That's
in
it.
9
You're
whole
done.
days. That's it.
Strike it. We'll close out the podcast with that. We've got some work to do in promoting, but in any event, no, we are here again, and we're really excited to be here. So, John, let's go over to you here. What should we be excited about? What are we pumped to show them today in the world of music and the future of music?
Well, I don't know what you're excited about, but what I'm excited about is something super interesting that AI music has gotten to the point where it's so big where Congress is actually getting involved. So we're definitely going to dive into that and see what the heck is going on. Must be pretty big, and there must be some, it must be a big deal if Congress is getting involved. But also, we're going to talk about something else controversial. Will AI music actually kill off jobs? We hear about robotics and AI and all this stuff, but we haven't heard much about that in the music industry, except for when it comes to producers. But what about people like DJs? What about people who maybe are involved in music? They're not actually playing, or even like people who play at restaurants or something like that. Is that necessary anymore? Right. And also, really interesting one. Did you know that Johnny Cash is back? But this time with Barbie. So that's what we're going to talk about today on the Future of Music.
What an open loop. That's amazing. But there is one open loop that just remains that you know to expect, and that's me to tell you to subscribe, click the alerts, and to make sure that you follow in all the podcast platforms. Hey, I've literally been in there chatting with y'all in the comments area. We appreciate that, by the way. We appreciate the love and the support, and we're always in there. So let us know if you have questions, comments.
Yep.
You can't stand us. Things like that. It's fine. We'll be sad. You won't see it. But yeah, just kind of going into things here. This is really kind of, again, we talk about it all the time. It's as simple as loading up the news stories every minute. And there's new stuff happening at light speed when it comes to AI stuff and the future of music and where we're going to be here. And one of the big ones that I saw over the past few days, we talked about it, by the way, last episode, we talked about this whole stock thing with Goldman Sachs and how Universal Music Group was a part of that and how they were pushing this idea of AI music stock with Universal Music Group. But they're in the news again, man. It turns out Universal Music Group is urging Congress to pass regulations on AI. So they are actually trying to protect artists from copyright infringement around the use of AI-generated content. And this is something we've talked about a lot. We've talked about artists that are completely open to the idea, and they're like, just use my voice, feel free. I don't care. It's inevitable. Let it happen. And then we've seen the other side of people coming against it, fighting, threatening to sue if that happens. And that's all kind of like on the artist level. Now we're starting to get into the world of the actual producers and companies that own the entities, or the artists, I should say. And they are now pushing heavily on Congress. I think it was specifically 3 laws that they want to see put into place for regulations on AI and generating music and voices. I think the quote that I wrote down for us to kind of kick things off is that the spokesperson actually said an artist's voice is the most valuable part of their livelihood and public persona. And to steal it, no matter the means, is wrong. So what are your thoughts there, man? I mean, we expect this. This is stuff that we know is coming, but it's here now. So, like, where does it go from here? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think number one, it's inevitable to come to this place because with the advent of what's called deep fakes, where you can basically impersonate with AI an artist or a person or
Mhm.
whatever. Of course, we're talking about artists, right? I mean, of course, we were going to get to this point, and there has to be some. I won't say there has to be rules, but I think establishing some boundaries is going to help people navigate the space. Is what we're getting at. So when it comes to, I think there's two basic options, and I think both of them have to be allowed in a way. And what I mean is, if you go to like an image website where you get like a stock photos, or for example, that website Flickr, they have what's called a
Mhm.
Creative Commons. So where people can take their own photos, upload them to the website, and they have a filter and they have settings where you can choose uh, photos that are either available for the public. It's not copyrighted, or maybe you have to just state some attribution or something like that for whoever took the photo. And then you also have other ones that are deemed or labeled as not for commercial use. So
Mhm.
I think it's going to be I think it's going to be one or the other. And it seems like in order for this to work, either let's just say, crazy scenario, Congress quote shuts it off. Like you can't use any AI, anything. You're going to be thrown in jail or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm just making an extreme example on purpose to show one route. I don't think we're going to go down that route, but the other route requires two options. So the people who own the copyright, now we're talking about property rights. The people who own the copyright to, let's say, their voice or their music, like, I don't know, Jay-Z, for example, he has a song, he owns the copyright to that, or whoever, the record company, whoever owns the copyright to that. Clearly, you can't infringe on that copyright. You can't duplicate it. You can't replicate it. You can't use his likeness or whatever to make stuff like him. And we'll get into brand and identity here in a moment. But that's one scenario where I could see how maybe there's some kind of a system where maybe there's some kind of a database, maybe there's something that says, hey, this artist or this person, no, you cannot, use it's copyrighted. You can't use their likeness, you can't use their whatever. And who knows, maybe all of the companies in the space, in the AI space, who allow production of deep fakes or something like that, maybe they all get regulated so that it literally won't let you use Jay-Z's voice, or like, hey, this sounds like Jay-Z. Sorry, you can't use this. So like, it won't be possible to produce that. On the other side, I think there will be like an optionality to it. So we've talked about Grimes, for example. So Grimes has said, yeah, sure, use my voice, just give me a cut of it. So maybe there's
Mhm.
some type of platform participation or regulation that comes into play where the artist or the owner of the copyright or the voice or whatever it is gets to choose which way they want to go or how they want to do that. That's kind of how I could see it playing out. What do you think?
Truth. Yeah, I think I don't know. I've always been on the outside as like independent artist myself. I've never belonged to a record label or anything, even when I was still young and going. But I was always independent artist, and this is one of the reasons I think for me, because it's still, even though we're in this world of 2023 and things have changed and are drastically changing always, it
Hmm.
always seems like they just want to have that, like, portfolio to make the money, and like you have to do what they say.
Hmm.
So, I think it's up to the artist, really. At the end of the day, you have to look at your options and think, ultimately, do I want somebody managing my image for me? Because that's basically what they'll do. And if you're okay with that, cool. If you don't want to manage that, that makes sense. Go for that. But then you also have to think, but what if I have an opportunity come up? Let's say somebody does contact me in 2 years and says, listen, we just need to make your voice licensable. We need to
That's
make
it.
sure that
Yeah.
we license your voice so that we can have it used in AI generation. And they're saying you get a cut, no worries, like you get royalties forever, and you have the
Hmm.
opportunity. You have to really look that far in advance as an artist now and think, do I want that opportunity open to me, or do
Hmm.
I not want it open to me? because it really comes down to the record label at this point as to whether that's allowed. And if they strike a deal, they strike the deal, not you. And I also think this allows artists, when we talk about the hurt and the potential negative of AI music generation, we also have to complement it with the positive, because in my eyes, there's a really good way to make more money passively now, potentially, as an artist. So we could start to think of our voice, our guitar playing, our instrument playing, whatever it is, as a product in and of itself now, and knowing that it could be recreated without us touching it, and we can make money off of it. So there are a lot of questions you have to ask yourself, I think, going into this. But just like any big company out there, they want to protect their assets, and they want to make sure that they're the ones earning a living off of what they've invested in and they've struck deals with, including artists, and just like all the way down to their voice. So it makes sense. I expect to see this stuff, but it really opens up more questions, I think, for potential artists that are considering that record deal versus doing things on their own in the future. But it's definitely going to happen. If you have companies like Universal Music Group going for it, other companies are going to champion that, and they're really going to push on Congress to get this moving. So I expect us in the next month at the most to start seeing some regulations put out there. But that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what type of regulation they're thinking about. And also, I mean, to be honest, Congress is usually behind when it comes to a lot of different new developing areas, right? So it's going to be also interesting to see what do they have to say about it, and for them to kind of show their cards, if you will, on what do they know about it, and like what is their expertise, if any, in this space, and how do they treat it, how do they approach it. So that's also interesting on its own. But you talking about an artist image, or damaging a brand is what I'll call it, because that's what it is. This kind of makes me think of, I think it's exactly the same as a licensing model for, let's say, bands do this now. So, for example, let's say you own the Kiss logo or something like that. You can go out there and license different, like T-shirt companies, for example. Hey, you can use this logo on T-shirts. You can mark it up a certain amount, and we get a cut of it. We're licensing the logo to you, so we get a passive cut of it. So I actually think that this can be a huge, and I mean, I've even started thinking about, okay, what can I do? How can I create potentially for example, like a no name, a no face band or group or something like that. That's like an artist, but I don't have to be like the Gorillas, for example. I think it's just called Gorillas. I don't want to be playing on stage anymore. I don't want to do any of that. I want to just sit in my chair and have a podcast and drink coffee. Like, I don't want to get on stage anymore. But I mean, just think about that. If you're a musician, we're musicians, you play every day. We like to just create stuff and play and record it. It's just fun, right? So why not create like a band out of that, or a brand out of it, I should say. Maybe that's the thing. We should change band to brand. But anyway,
Yes.
yeah. So if you develop something unique, even if you're an existing artist and also an up and coming artist, over time you develop something unique about you, whether that's your playing style or your singing style or your songs or your following, whatever it is that people start to gravitate to. It's exactly the same as like purses or fashion. Let's say Chanel. If Chanel creates a certain product and maybe they don't want to distribute it, maybe they go to some local vendor, or smaller vendors or manufacturers or whatever, and license the label, license the brand, or license the formula, or whatever it is. It's the same model. So I think that now this allows musicians to tap into this model, which is amazing, because you can get a cut of uh, whatever everybody else creates, which is, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is develop your brand, and then boom, license it out. I think it's amazing.
And I would go as far as saying it's necessary now for musicians to earn a living. It's been
Yeah.
years that it's been difficult to actually make it in terms of financially for a musician. I can't tell you how many times I've had the opportunity and blessing to be backstage with people that I have looked up to for years, and realized that I think, like, even in a 9 to 5 job, I make more money than these people do. This is insane to me. Like, I would have never considered that was the case when I was listening to them and looking up to them. It's just been a long time, a long period of this streaming being big, and
Yeah.
album sales not mattering anymore, and them losing a huge amount of cash. in that process. So this is just almost like a new opportunity that they need to see as a replacement for that potential income. Again, we've heard how many people say it. Rodem said it, Barenth said it, Brock said it. Everybody has said that you need to focus on being a business as well
Yeah.
as a musician. And this is just one of those ways. Speaking of being a business in music, let's talk about DJs. Yeah, have you ever done any DJing, Jonathan? Have you ever tried to actually mess with a mixing board?
Those are two different questions. Yes, I know how to run a mixing board. No, I have never tried to DJ. And when somebody, hands me a iPhone or something like that, and they say, "You be the DJ, you put on music," I'm like, "Nope, nope, you do it. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to do it. Not for me."
Yeah. I actually, this is like a pipe dream of mine, is to get the setup and actually start trying to combine elements of songs and tracks and play around every now and then. It's something I've wanted to do for a
Okay.
little while. Little known
Interesting.
fact. There you go. So if anybody wants to send me the equipment, just feel free. But the big thing that I saw that really brought up a question to me that I wanted to bring to the podcast is
Mhm.
that NetEase. We've spoken about this company a few times with their their music generation AI, as well as the companies that they're working with. But they're rolling out a new feature in their own program, and it's called Private DJ.
Mhm.
So right now, as it stands, it's what you described, which is all right. Here's the iPhone. Just find us a playlist. Like, make sure the party doesn't die right now. Okay, and that's a
Yep.
lot of responsibility. Okay, and most of the time, it's just for me dream theater the whole time, and everybody leaves anyway. But I don't care. And this idea that they're implementing is something that they're trying to grow into, is what they're stating. Really, they're trying to go through this process of having algorithm based private DJs where you're just putting in the information. They're basing your reaction on what's being played, and they're navigating through there onto what should be played next, so that everybody's
Mm.
excited and happy and pleased with the actual set list and the playlist that you have going on. But they then start to have a conversation on the next step, which is, well, if we could do it with streaming platforms and we could do a better job at predicting the song that the crowd wants to hear with what we're doing
Mhm.
right now in the algorithm, who's to say that an actual DJ at a wedding or a party or at a club needs to exist? If we do
Yeah.
it better than them, we could just start to roll out this algorithm based bot, so to speak, in a way, to do AI DJ work now. So now it's coming into, we talked about producers and artists. Now it
Mhm.
seems like DJs are coming into question as well in the music
Coming
industry.
for you.
Yeah. So first of all, thoughts on that. Second, thing that I'm curious on is, would you even trust that, or is that part of the experience? Is that part of that human experience that we talk about a lot? Is that you actually have a person there doing it with you and
Mhm.
engaging the crowd? Is that necessary? So I know that it won't take away your public DJing job that you don't have, but what are your thoughts, John?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you were leading to there. I think there's a big difference between what can happen and what people want. So, like Starbucks, for example, Starbucks didn't kill all of the coffee shops in the world because people want what they want. They want something in particular. In fact, well, I won't go down the road with Starbucks, but let's just say sometimes you want a particular, artisanal style coffee in a tiny little shop that's different than Starbucks. You just don't want the same old experience, even if Starbucks. Yeah. Anyway, even if they feel good to go into, it's always the same, and that's fine. But it's also commercial, and we know it is. So I mean, not everybody wants that. So I think in the same way that people still listen to vinyl records, in the same way that people like different styles of clothes, some styles come around, they come back around, right? And I just don't think that having a human experience is going to go away for some people. Sure, some events like corporate events, maybe that's a way to cut costs, because who really cares if there's a band there if you're in a suit and you're talking about accounting or something like that, or whatever. But I can see the case for both. So again, there are cases where it would make sense, maybe from a cost saving standpoint, to replace an actual DJ if the software is good enough, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But then there are other scenarios where, like at a wedding, I mean, we've all been to weddings where there's a DJ. and bands. So let's put bands aside and just talk about only DJs. Obviously, the DJ feeds off the crowd, and they're human, so they know what humans want. And I know that this, net ease is what it's called, is trying to replicate that or even make it better. But there's just something about like that dual personality interaction where the crowd is interacting with a DJ. They're both feeding off each other. Just think about what it would be like at a wedding where there's music and it's good, and everybody's just focused on themselves, like as a crowd. Maybe it would be good. I don't know. Maybe nobody would miss it. Right? I have no idea. But I know some people will want a real person. In terms of the actual software, in terms of how it works, I'm really curious to hear how does it get feedback from the crowd? Is it like a decibel measurement? Is it like they're measuring somehow whatever is denoted as excitement and hooping and hollering or whatever in computer terms? I don't know how many ones or zeros that is, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you do that, but if they can configure whatever they're putting out in a way that is accurate and actually responds, I could see how it could be a lot better than a real DJ, honestly. Because just think about this, and then I'll hand it to you. A human has limited knowledge and experience. A computer theoretically doesn't. So they might have access to all the songs and choose the best one for the right moment.
And again, remember, this is a tiered approach. Right now, I think they're just trying to basically beat the recommendations made by something like a Spotify for you to be listening and the recommendations that it makes. But it's only a stepping stone. So I think it's brainwaves. I think we're going to be plugged in directly to the motherboard at the wedding, and that's going to be how it knows for sure. But also, who are you going to go to when you're way too intoxicated at the wedding? And you need to annoy the DJ to play a song for you. You
That's true.
can't walk up to the computer. I guess maybe you can. I don't know, but I know plenty of relatives that would be upset in my life at this point. Speaking of music, speaking of DJ, speaking of playlists, there's something new in the interwebs for listening pleasure at this point. And it's if you notice, I've got my Johnny Cash shirt on today, because I'm a true Texan over here. I'm not a true Texan. I'm from Akron, but I live in Texas, right? It's big enough to where I can say I live there, and nobody will find me, hopefully. But in any event, Johnny Cash, man, I saw this pop up in my recommended videos before I even read any stories on it. There was a video made with a Johnny Cash AI voice, and it is weird and it is incredible at the same time. It is creepy, I guess, is the best way to say it. It could be the content. That could be why, because they decided to have fun with it and have this AI voice of Johnny Cash come in the feeling of Folsom Prison Blues, and just have him sing Barbie Girl and a couple other hits as well mixed in there in kind of like a 90s compilation. And it is insanely accurate for it being AI and for it notably and obviously stating that it's AI. So it came out on last week on YouTube, and within 4 days already had 500,000 views, and it's growing ever since. And it just brings to the forefront again that people are actually interested in this concept of AI voices. But John, I don't think you've heard it. I don't think you've
I have
actually
not heard it.
listened to this hit. So I think it's due for us and the viewers to hear this, especially because in the comments recently, I've been getting people asking about actual examples. So what better actual example than Johnny Cash singing Barbie Girl and other hits? I'm pretty sure that's what people are asking for anyway. So, you got to satisfy them. As the DJ of the podcast here, I'm going to make sure I do that. But let's play this for you here, John, and we'll pause in between and kind of give some of our thoughts initially on what we're hearing. But what I want you to listen for is the accuracy and anything that we can find as notably computerized in this process. Okay. So let's do it. You ready? You excited? You should be excited.
Well, actually, I have to say I was not expecting to listen to Johnny Cash sing Barbie Girl when I woke up this morning, but let's go for it.
Well, you got to have goals. Okay. You got to
Gotta have
start
goals. Gotta have
setting
goals.
bigger goals for yourself, dreams, aspirations, vision boards. Okay.
Got
You
it.
got to
Got it.
start doing all of these things. All right. So without further ado, Sir Computer Johnny Cash.
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere. Oh, come on Barbie, let's go party, 'cause I'm in a Barbie world. If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Make it last forever, friendship never ends. I put my hands up to playing my song, the butterflies fly away. Yeah, 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 it's a party in the USA.
So there you go. You
All
have
right.
a little taste of it. Let me get your honest review for the Billboard 100 charts. Let's go.
So first of all, when I first heard the voice, I mean, it is like, wow, like that is Johnny Cash. It's amazing. The tonality is just like, wow, that sounds fantastic. It actually sounds like, it almost sounds so about the AI thing. So it sounds a little too smooth for me
Mhm.
for to be Johnny Cash in a way that the way that it's sung is a little bit too compressed sounding. And I'm not talking about the sound. I'm talking about the actual singing, but also the sound. The sound sounds like Johnny Cash went to a big studio and recorded with some really nice, he recorded I think he stepped into a day when Aerosmith was recording the album Pump. He just kind of walked in and sang Barbie Girl for 30 minutes. That's
Yeah,
kind of what it
yeah.
sounded like to me. But also, I noticed the pronunciation, and this is what I noticed with a lot of AI voices, is the pronunciations are uh, they're off in terms of certain sounds. So, for example, he said brush my hair, but he said brush. He didn't say brush. So,
Mm-hmm.
those are little things that you can pick up on. But overall, it's like, holy crap. I mean, sounds pretty amazing. I was really impressed by uh, the intonation, like the melody that it was singing. It's just kind of mind blowing, really. I think it went a little too deep for Johnny Cash, but yeah, pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. Literally the same intervals as us musicians might say that Johnny Cash is really well known for in all
Mhm.
of his singing. I mean, Johnny Cash, like legend. Love him, he's fantastic. But it's one of those things where once you hear 20 Johnny Cash songs, you start to understand where he goes.
Uh-huh.
In a lot of the melodies that he sings, which makes it easy for AI, more than likely, to start to replicate that because they have so many songs to analyze and they're all somewhat similar in that way. But yeah, I think quality wise, it's close. I think it's all close. The fact that again we weren't even talking about this as a possibility last
Mhm.
year, and
Last
now we're
year,
just
man.
yeah, we're just like
The beginning of
nitpicking.
this year.
True, true. Yeah, we're like nitpicking, like, no, it sounds like the
Yeah.
microphone that they acted like he used was a little too compressed.
Yeah.
It was a little too much. Like that's our critique. It's not like it sounded awful. It sounded nothing like him.
Mhm.
It's ah, incredible,
It is
amazing
incredible.
as well with the fact that the small things of pronunciation, which is so easily learned in machine learning. So that we probably heard that now and it's fixed already,
Mhm.
that there was a mispronunciation or two. But I do think that there is this little elements that maybe the machine learning starts to get into, or it doesn't, which is it's too perfect at times. I think that's one of the things you
Mhm.
you went to. There are those certain errors or inflections that aren't even errors, right? It's just the quality of the actual singer. It's what they are. It's who they are. It's the human being. And you mentioned it, I think, in the last podcast, which was the first or second take for a solo on guitar. Like keep those because that's
Yep.
the most natural. It's before you start to think about it. Sure, there are mistakes, but that gives it life in that way. So I think we're kind of missing that a bit. And it's almost like Johnny Cash went and got trained on vocal coaching for another 5 years from like the most prestigious person he could, and then recorded that.
Yep.
But it's pretty on point. Let alone the music is so fitting for a typical Johnny Cash chord progression and guitar playing and guitar style. I love that they took the time to put in the crowd feedback, the cheering noises, because you have to, right? It's got to be like a live Johnny Cash album. But overall, impressive for sure. For sure. There are my thoughts. There you go. I just gave them to you.
I now have them. I have your thoughts. No, I mean it really is. It's mind blowing. It's incredible. I mean, we can nitpick all day, but I think 99% of people listening to that would think it's a real song. If they just played it on the radio and you didn't know who Johnny Cash was, or if you weren't really paying attention, you would never know. And one other thing that did occur to me actually as I was listening is I know the song was Barbie Girl. I wasn't expecting I wasn't expecting to sound like that, like an actual Johnny Cash kind of blues song in his style. And it wasn't bad. So we talk all the time about, or several times we talked about, will people listen to AI music, or do they need to have an artist? Do they need to have an actual person behind it? And as I was listening, I have to admit, I don't really care who it was. I just like to hear it. Like, it sounds good. So who cares at the end of the day? I'm really curious to see how that concept plays out, and just like what do people do? Do they just listen to these songs and don't care about artists or bands anymore? It's really fascinating.
And I think the context is also a big part of this.
Yeah.
So the context of it being comedy and somewhat of a parody, because it's Johnny Cash doing typical pop songs from the 90s. That's alluring in its own way, to where people
Sure.
are like, I got to check this out. I got to see what this sounds like. But when is that moment that it shifts to a Johnny Cash doing another extremely serious song that starts to gain interest just as much? Because right now I'll admit that's very novelty. Right
Yep.
now, the fact that people are watching it like crazy isn't because it's AI, and isn't because they want to hear Johnny Cash. More than likely, it's they want to hear the AI Johnny Cash sing Barbie Girl.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
when do we break down that barrier of, we just released an AI Johnny Cash song that is super meaningful and creative and something that we feel represents something he would have done had he not been passed away? But also, let's talk about how much Johnny Cash is probably rolling over in his grave, knowing that AI is singing Barbie Girl. Well, let's think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's a good one, and he definitely is, I'm sure. But as we're talking, we talk about how a lot of this stuff is going to be better for musicians. There's a lot more opportunity, and here's an opportunity right here if somebody wants to take it. I guarantee you, uh, certain people who catch on to this will make a lot of money in the short, next few months to maybe potentially a few years, depending on how long it lasts. But I can definitely see the desire for people to want to see some of their favorite artists sing somebody else's songs. So, for example, Johnny Cash. Obviously, this is a novelty thing. It's like, oh, Johnny Cash and Barbie. It's two completely opposite things. Obviously, I want to see it because it's just curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But imagine if you have like Nat King Cole, for example, and he's singing like Celine Dion's Christmas songs, or if you happen to be a fan, or something like that. I guarantee you people will want to watch that. And if you can figure out a way to monetize it, and right now the easiest thing that I can think of is have a YouTube channel where what you do is just have artists, famous artists that you can somehow use their likeness to sing other people's songs. A lot of people will listen to it. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, we talked at the beginning about the legality stuff, going to Congress and passing regulations. I noticed something immediately that was a joke in the beginning, where he said, "Hey, this is not Johnny Cash,"
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, wait, but that just brings to light, huh? So I wonder if there comes a point where we're able to use artists, but as long as we explicitly state, like, that's not the artist, it's not the certain regulations, really are going to have a fun time
Yep.
rolling out, because those legalities are so detailed, and it's going to be pretty wild. But there you go. There is the Johnny Cash singing Barbie Girl that I wanted you to enjoy, that I know you're going to get off this podcast today. And you're just going to listen to it on loop.
I already have it loaded up right now. Yep. I'll put it on when I go to sleep.
Good. But also, let's leave with this. One big thing that could be happening as well, which will be interesting to see. What about the people that really never listened to Johnny Cash? And now this is coming up. It's becoming a major viral video. Does it inspire people to go back in time and listen to actual Johnny Cash? And maybe it's a way of bringing back that person and not letting their music die off. It's a possibility.
Totally. I think we should have another episode about that, actually, because there's a lot to talk about there. But yeah, I mean, if you think about, it's almost like marketing for the artist, right? So if you put the Johnny Cash song out there, he's singing Barbie Girl, a lot of eyeballs and ears go to this Johnny Cash song. And like you said, I guarantee you a few of them will think like, oh yeah, Johnny Cash. I've either never listened to him before, let me check it out. Or I used to love Johnny Cash, let me, put on an old album or something. Boom, there you go. Johnny Cash just got more streams.
I'm sure he cares. I'm sure he really cares.
He's checking
about
Spotify on his phone right now. That's great.
Yeah. That's what we want. And that is the world we're in with the future of music. But hey, really good stuff as always. I'm excited for, by the way, our next episode that we'll be doing. I'm just going to tease it there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've got a really, really fun guest coming on, and I'm excited about it. So I'm just going to tease that out, open loop it for everybody. And before we go, well, I know we talked about like this, and then it was over here in direction, and then like over here in direction. There was really no collective focus on the topics that we covered. But closing thoughts for everybody, John.
It depends on what you talk about goals at the beginning, right? If my goal is to listen to Barbie Girl by the end of the day, I'm good. We accomplished that today. No, but really, whoever's listening, if you think about what is their goal, for me, I'm kind of focused on, okay, what could be some business opportunities for artists and for musicians, and other ways that they can monetize and make money out of this. That's kind of where my focus is at, and that's why I brought up the thing about having, creating a channel or creating it doesn't matter what it is, but creating some means of having some certain famous artists do other artists' songs that people would be interested in. That's just one example. But as far as takeaways, I would say, and closing thoughts, for somebody who is focused on something like that and you're looking for the next opportunity for yourself as an artist or somebody who wants to start or maintain or grow a business, I would just say, number one, keep listening, because we're always talking about the latest, newest things that are happening, but keep up to date with it. Stay aware of it. See what's happening, because that's where these ideas are going to reveal themselves. That's where you can kind of get in early and start to do things before other people. So yeah, just keep up to date with it.
And there are actually people now, if you don't believe that that's a possibility, that are using AI music generation tools to create 8-hour playlists for chill music or lo-fi music. That is actually one of the biggest, one of the biggest categories on YouTube right now, just for people that work from home or work in an office and they need to focus. So there are channels booming all the time now with AI generated chill music for focus and work. Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as a couple clicks, and they produce it and they learn what they need to about YouTube to monetize. And it's a business. Again, it's all about looking at this as, how can I benefit from it? In what ways? If that's what you want to do, which is, it's a good idea. I'm not going to lie. So there you go. Again, subscribe. Make sure you do that so that you see our next episode, because it's a banger. That's what the kids are saying now, I think. I don't know. I'm not a kid anymore. So it's next episode's going to be bussin'. Do they still say bussin'?
Never heard that one before. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm cooler than you, so it's okay. Don't be upset. Actually, that probably aged me quite a bit. I think that was popular like 6 months ago, which in like kid feeling and years, that's like 18 years of time that I'm aging myself, but it's okay. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you click the alerts, make sure you follow, and we will see you next time on the Future of Music podcast.